All right, now I'm going to talk about what managers or small business owners should know when hiring help with their search advertising campaigns, and I'm going to go over 5 things. First, I'll talk about the level of effort needed to run search advertising campaigns. Second, I'll talk about the pros and cons of doing it yourself. Third, the pros and cons of hiring an agency. Fourth, talk about hiring contractors. And lastly, talk about hiring a full-time employee. So first of all, level of effort. I made a video about what managers should know about search engine advertising, and in it, the first point was that great campaigns take a lot of time to start, but they require very little maintenance once they're running. If you want a full explanation, you can go back to one of my introductory videos about search ads, but basically, it's true because the value of a keyword doesn't change much over time. For example, let's say you sell dog food on your website and you're bidding on the keyword dog food. Your search advertising manager will look at your analytics software to see all the people who found your website after typing in dog food. Then they'll see how profitable the average visit was, and they'll make an informed guess about how much to spend in order to bid on the word dog food. I say bid because in Google, every time you do a search for a keyword, they run an auction where they sort of arrange advertisers based on who is willing to pay the most. It doesn't exactly work that way, but for the sake of this video, let's just assume that it's a simple auction where the highest bidder wins. Anyway, through some trial and error, you'll eventually determine the ideal bid for the keyword dog food, and at that point, there isn't much left to do. You just leave your ideal bid in there, and you'll maximize your profit. Now, if you're in a business that has a lot of seasonality, meaning that your business fluctuates a lot over the course of a year, then you will need to change your bids throughout the year to adjust for those fluctuations. Also, if there are major changes going on in your business or in your industry, you'll also need to change your bids. An example of a major change would be you redesign your website and you find that you're converting traffic 10% more efficiently. So now you can spend 10% more on your marketing and still be profitable. So it's really not very common that you need to change the bid prices on any of your keywords or that you need to change them significantly. And really, anybody who says that search engine advertising campaigns require a lot of maintenance over a long period of time either don't have a clue or they're lying. I've run campaigns ranging from $10,000 a year in spend to campaigns that spend well over $1 million a year. I've worked on campaigns for startups, for small and medium-sized businesses, and big companies like Monster.com, which is my first job out of college. They simply do not need a lot of ongoing maintenance. Most of this idea that they need a lot comes from agencies that are charging you a monthly fee, and they obviously want to continue to charge you that monthly fee, and they want it to be a high fee. So they understand you don't really know all the details about it, so they'll say, "Oh, there's all these multiple factors going on, and it's complicated, and this and that." And it's all a bunch of nonsense. All right, so doing it yourself. Anybody can start a Google AdWords campaign and do an okay job at it with just an hour of training. If you spend about 30 to 40 hours studying the videos and written material Google provides to help people learn AdWords, and you pass their certification test, then you're pretty well qualified to run campaigns that spend as much as $250,000 a year. Google has by far the best training of any company I've ever worked with. It's fantastic, and it's how I learned, and it's how a lot of other people in the industry learned. So I highly recommend checking it out if you want to learn more about how to use their systems. There are a few other tricks of the trade, and a lot of them have to do with learning how to write ads that will encourage people to click on your ad and visit your website. But there isn't a whole lot you need to learn beyond the material that Google provides for free on their website to learn AdWords. I've seen several other people who are selling AdWords instructional courses and books and video series, and none of them have ever been as good as the free material Google provides. The reason is simple economics. Google is making billions of dollars a year on their search ads, so they can afford to spend millions of dollars a year making them easy to use and helping people get to know how to use them. Um, when I was thinking about making this series of videos, I decided I wasn't going to cover any of the material that Google already covers well. I'm just going to make a few videos about some of the subjects that they either don't cover or don't cover particularly well. So the bottom line is if you want to spend 30 to 40 hours learning the system and maybe another 40 to 50 hours building your campaigns, you'll probably do a great job of it. If you don't want to make that kind of time commitment, then I suggest you hire an expert in some capacity. So the first option is the safest route. It's hiring an agency. And an agency is a good option if you don't want to learn much about the subject at hand. You just want the job done well. Whether you hire an agency for search advertising or web design or strategy consulting, the inherent value proposition is that you're going to pay a lot more money than you would if you hired a person to do the job, but it requires much less management on your part. In an agency or consulting business, the client often pays about 3 to 5 times the compensation of the people who are actually doing the work. So, for example, if you're hiring a design firm and they're charging you $100 an hour, they are probably paying their designers about $20 to $33 an hour to actually do the work. So where does the rest of the money go? It goes to advertising. It goes to building a sales force. It goes to project managers. It goes to rent, payroll taxes, administrative work like HR and benefits. It goes to expenses. It goes to the corporate tax. And all of that overhead adds up pretty quickly. Now, the only significant downside to hiring an agency is that it's hard to evaluate which one to hire because they all tend to look and act the same when they're selling you. Now, like most people, I won't hire an agency that doesn't present themselves in a professional manner. And you can make a basic judgment about an agency based on whether or not its website looks professional and how they treat you during the sales process. But often that doesn't differentiate the agencies very much. I've had some good outcomes in hiring agencies when I actually ask if I can randomly contact former clients of theirs to see, what their previous clients have to say about the agency. And usually you get a list of former clients from the agency's website, so obviously it's a bit of a biased list because the agency presumably would not list former clients they expect to say bad things. But it is just one further level of filter that will weed out some of the poor players and make sure you're dealing with somebody that has at least done a high enough quality of work that other people will say good things about them. Now, the main thing to keep in mind is that for most businesses, there is no reason to pay an agency high fees for more than 3 months if the campaign is not drastically changing. When I say changing, that goes back to what I talked about earlier, meaning you have a lot of seasonality or you're adding and subtracting products in your product line that are really big or a huge new competitor or something that would drastically alter the business. But outside of that, there is very little maintenance that needs to be done over the course of the campaign. All right, so next, hiring a contractor. Hiring a contractor is a lot easier than it sounds because there are websites that specialize in making it easy for contractors to find work and companies to find contractors. The two biggest are elance.com and odesk.com. On either site, you can post a job for just about any kind of work that can be done over the web, and contractors will bid on the job. Now, the beauty of the system is that after every job, the client gets to rate the contractor, and those ratings can be seen by every client. So if a contractor consistently gets high ratings from clients, they'll have a high score, and then they can get work more easily and they can charge a higher price for it. Now, if a contractor gets low scores from clients, then it's going to be really hard for them to get more work, and they usually just leave the site. Hiring a contractor through Elance or Odesk is the solution that I normally recommend to small and medium businesses that are not full-fledged web marketing experts. I personally use Elance a lot because, and that's just a site I got started with, but Odesk is just as good. I've gotten good results on about 95% of the jobs that I have outsourced to contractors I hired on Elance. And with both sites, you can hire all kinds of different remote workers. You might be thinking about it now for a search advertising consultant, but you can also find legal help, sales help, web design and web programming help, and a lot of other kinds of workers. Now, the rating system is probably the best part, but beyond that, there are some cost advantages because a contractor doesn't need all the things that an agency needs. For example, sales and marketing can easily take up about 20% of the budget at an agency, but a contractor on these sites doesn't need to spend a dime on it because they're just getting work because they have high ratings. They don't need to spend any money on advertising or sales or marketing. And they also don't need to pay much in the way of rent for fancy offices that will impress clients because they don't have to meet with clients in person. They also don't need to be paid as much as an American if they live in a less wealthy country. For example, I've paid engineers in India $20 an hour for the same work that would cost $100 or $150 an hour in America, and the quality of work is normally just the same or darn close to being just the same. So I've been able to realize that kind of cost savings on many projects I've done. So just keep in mind that the skill level you will find on these sites is really good for most jobs, but it only goes so high. Don't expect to find a genius that can run a $5 million a year search advertising campaign with great efficiency. For that kind of really, really high level work that you only really have a need for if you're in a really big company, you are probably going to have to hire some full-time employees in a major industrialized country that have years of experience. But the contractor option is great for campaigns that will spend up to maybe $200,000 a year or less. All right, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is hiring a full-time employee. Now, hiring a full-time employee makes sense when your website is a big part of your business and you manage several other full-time employees that work on the site. Normally, the person who manages search engine spending will manage other responsibilities like search engine optimization or doing all the rest of your online marketing or doing some reporting and analytics work. And that's the case because, like I said in the beginning, search campaigns require little maintenance once they're already set up. Now, when it comes to hiring a person like this, just remember that you want to hire a person who is an analytical thinker because the job is about making small changes that will result in more profit. This is a different mindset than the kind of person who comes up with creative brand advertising campaigns. You want a person who just really cares about ROI and profitability. Somebody that is willing to try new strategies, but demands that they show some sort of return, some sort of improvement. Otherwise, they'll be discontinued.